And what would be the number one tip for losing weight? Like the number one of anything. I don't care if it's like cardio or eating a certain food or not eating. Like, what is one thing that you would suggest that people do to lose weight? What do you think about just fasting in general for weight loss? Should people fast? Like, a lot of people swear by it. Is that a good idea, or can that cause problems?
Yeah, and I actually have a whole video on intermittent fasting as well, but it is complicated. But what the research tells us is that when compared to continuous caloric restriction, it's actually not that different in terms of like overall weight loss. The reason why most people lose weight is because when we skip meals, we're just kind of bad at making up for them calorically. So if continuous caloric restriction works better for you, then that is going to actually work better in general. Now, I will say that if we're comparing like calories in, calories out versus like, or if we're just like caloric restriction versus intermittent fasting, or whatever, when we actually look at the data, we see that most people will lose weight intermittent fasting, obviously, because they're creating a caloric deficit for themselves. But some people will stay the same weight and some people will actually gain weight. And that's because it's really easy to cheat the system and gorge yourself or binge during your eating window if you let yourself get too hungry. So I think it's good, or it's a good option when it already naturally aligns with your natural hunger cues. But it's bad when it doesn't. If you're a morning person and you're trying to and you're hungry at 5 a.m. like I am, but you're not eating till 1 p.m., the minute you get to 1 p.m., you're probably going to binge and eat too much. So that's where it does not work. And we also have that research to suggest that with intermittent fasting, front loading those calories earlier on in the day seems to have a metabolic benefit of reducing insulin or increasing insulin sensitivity versus having most of your calories later on in the day, which seems to decrease insulin sensitivity, which increases your risk of diabetes. So it can work, it cannot work. It really depends on the person and their own unique kind of hunger and circadian rhythm.
Personally, I've tried almost every diet, and I've tried the intermittent fasting, and I've said, oh, I'm going to skip this meal, save my calories for later, and I'm like, yeah, I can eat like 1,500 calories now because I didn't eat earlier. I eat the meal, and I'm like, okay, good. 20 minutes later, starving just as much as if I hadn't eaten that first meal, eat that meal. 20 minutes later, same thing, and I'm like, I ended up eating 2,000 calories more than I was supposed to, even though I fasted all day and had all these calories saved up. Didn't work in the slightest for me. So for me, horrible idea. Maybe for some other people it worked for them.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, I want to know what you think about protein and in terms of how many grams a day should be people eating, or what percentage. And also, you talk a lot about fat in your videos being satiating, like fat, the importance of fat being satiating. And personally, I have this opposite approach. Like, I literally believe the exact opposite. So this is one area that we differ. I think that protein is by far the most satiating. And I find that fat to not be satiating at all. And some people will argue and say, yeah, but I ate a lot of fat and I was more satiated. But I'm like, yeah, but the calories in the fat are higher, at over double. So you might be eating, for example, nuts to me are not satiating because I weighed it out. That was 300 calories. And I was like, I'm not satiated, but when I eat popcorn, it's a big bag of 200 calories. I'm more full on 200 calories of popcorn than 300 calories of nuts. And protein is the most satiating. I don't know why. I just eat protein, and it's like, I don't binge on chicken. I'm not going to sit there and eat 2,000 calories of chicken before bed, but give me some ice cream, I'm 4,000 calories in. Give me a bag of nuts, 2,000 calories. Like, is that not something you experience? Like, what do you think of that? Is protein better than the fat? Is fat satiating? Like, what is the evidence on this?
So you're correct. When I look at the what I call the hunger crushing combo, which is protein, fiber, and fat. If we're looking at the hunger crushing combo, protein is king. Protein is king. And that's why people give me a hard time all the time about, oh, you're social, you're always recommending too much protein. No, protein has benefits for so many different things, and it is king in the satiety hierarchy. So you are absolutely right. There's 4 calories in a gram of protein. There's 9 calories in a gram of fat. Protein per gram is gonna be the most satiating. Then it's fiber, then it's fat. But fat is slower digested than, let's say, carbohydrates. So it does also carry a lot of satiety factor as well. But in terms of the recommendation, I think that the current RDA of 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight, grossly insufficient for most people. And like I said, I think a lot of people call me out, especially, some of the kind of raw vegans or the frugivores say, oh, I'm too obsessed with protein. But we have so much evidence that protein is really important for satiety, for weight management. It supports exercise recovery. So most people who are watching probably both of our videos are interested in those things. And for that reason, I do think protein is so key. And, it really depends on the person. It so depends on their activity, what they're doing, what their goals are. But I would say that I personally try to go for about 1 gram per pound of body weight for myself. That feels best for me. It keeps me most satisfied. I just feel more energized. And also because I have a bit of IBS situation going on, I cannot eat an excessive amount of fiber to keep me full. But yes, I agree. Popcorn, love popcorn. It is satisfying because you're also dealing with the volume benefit, right? You get more volume out of something that's higher in fiber and lower in fat compared to, let's say, like a tablespoon of peanut butter. So, there's also the mental satisfaction factor, and there's something satisfying about having a big ass bowl of popcorn versus a tiny little handful of nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I always say, well, I would love to just be eating some nuts and be full because, well, nuts are not going to bloat you as much. And who doesn't like a jar of peanut butter? Although I'll eat the whole jar. I used to do that when I was a kid, just spoon after spoon after spoon, dip it in the jam. And so it's great. And you're saying it's satiating because it lasts with you long, but it's like, yeah, but I ate 2,000 calories worth of peanut butter, so it's not really good. So I'm really against eating peanut butter, even though, yeah, I get it. We need the fats. It's just, if you're trying to lose weight, it's not going to help you that much. And fiber is, unfortunately, fiber bloats people. And people have this misconception that if your stomach is sticking out, that you somehow have a problem. You're bloated. Well, you shouldn't be bloated. I'm like, well, if you're eating fiber or any kind of volume, of course you have some bloat, but that's normal for your stomach to stick out when you eat something. But people they're obsessed with having that little tiny waist, especially nowadays, and the filters and Photoshop, it's making everyone even smaller. So it's like, what are we going to do? So overall, your opinion is that we should actually not eat that much fat if you're dieting, and that protein is like the smarter way to go.
Yeah, again, I'm all about not omitting anything from the diet. I think we still need fat in our diet, and fat and having that little bit of fat in the diet is going to contribute to satiety. But if you're looking to be in a weight loss deficit, then yes, you're going to want to focus on getting lots of fiber, lots of protein with some of that fat in there to help hold you over, and also just create nutritional balance in the diet.
So CCO, calories in, calories out, versus like the whole macro counting. What do you think is the best way to lose or maintain weight? Like personally, I'll just tell you, I don't count macros. I'm just eating. And I don't care if it's a high fat, high carb, low fat. As long as you're eating enough protein, to me it doesn't matter. You point to the rock. What kind of macros you're eating, as long as your calories are below that threshold for weight loss.
Yeah, not a sexy answer here, but I would say it depends. It depends on what's easier for the person to maintain, first and foremost. It depends on their relationship with food. It depends on their nutrition knowledge. I will say that in both of these scenarios, people have the opportunity to kind of cheat the system, and they kind of like misuse their kind of macro range or their calorie budget. And there's the opportunity to just consume an excessive amount of low nutrient foods just because it fits within this specific kind of equation. And I also think that both of these situations, in some cases, oversimplify weight to just a simple math calculation. And it's not always that simple. So, for example, those like calorie counting or macro counting often requires you to put a lot of trust in an online calculator that tells you how many calories you need in a day. When we know those online calculators do not take into consideration your specific activity that day, your adaptation to that activity, your metabolism, your microbiome, your kind of absorption of nutrients, all of those things. And it also doesn't take into consideration the fact that the food manufacturers whose labels you're using to count your calories are legally allowed to be 20% off on calories. Legally. And most of them, especially small companies, are off by a lot more than that. So I would rather people focus on dietary patterns and having some basic nutrition knowledge so as to learn that, okay, if I fill my half of my plate with vegetables, that's going to keep me a lot more satisfied than like a tiny fried chicken finger. So not one size fits all for everybody. It's really all about what's easy and sustainable for the unique person. But I do think that education should be number one.
And for me, and it sucks because you're 100% right. The macros and the calories, they can lie on all these things. So people might think, well, I'm eating 100 calories, but really they're eating 200. I literally bought two, like a trail mix, two of the same company, and one had double the calories of the other. Literally, I made a video on it. I was like, check this out. This says this says this. I'm like, you might eat this, and you bought this one, and you think you had 300 calories, but really you had 600 based on this one. So which is it? It's shocking that this happens, but it does. But for me personally, I'm not a fan of counting macros, like sitting there and saying, well, it's 61 grams of fat and 40 grams of carbs, and it's almost midnight, and I better chug olive oil because I need to get my fat grams in today. And it's like, I just rather see calories, and if you're not losing weight, then the calories, they need to get lower. It's as simple as that. So regardless if you're adding your calories right or wrong, if you're not losing weight, you're not in a deficit and you need to eat less of them. So if somebody can at least practice counting calories to an extent over the macro counting, if they're not losing weight, they can be like, well, I think I'm eating 2,000. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'll try eating 1,900 now. And then just by lowering it, eventually they're going to be in a deficit and lose weight.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. That's typically how it happens. And so there is a lot of experimentation involved, and it's just not enough for you to just look at the calculator and say, well, I'm keeping under my macros, I'm keeping my calories under where the online says I'm supposed to be. Well, the internet cannot actually get a sense of what your unique needs are every single day. So it really just comes down to just a little bit of tweaking here and there. And that's what professionals and coaches and dietitians help you do.
And what would be the number one tip for losing weight? Like the number one of anything. I don't care if it's like cardio or eating a certain food or not eating. Like, what is one thing that you would suggest that people do to lose weight?
Yeah, like it's so hard to just pick one. So I have that video that I know you did a review on of some of my kind of top tips. And there's like
right.
that are sustainable weight loss tips. And, different people.
You got to pick one.
Yeah,
we want the best.
One is hard.
One.
I think one as an overarching tip would be to not take on more than what you think you can handle at any given time. So, it's like we talked about, don't take on anything that you can't maintain for the rest of your life. I think that's really important because everyone who goes on a weight loss diet just goes too fast, too quick. And then what's the point? What is the point of losing 10 pounds for your wedding if you're going to gain it back on your honeymoon? I never understood this. I never understood why anybody would want to look a certain way for like one day. What is the point of that? So if there's no point in cutting your calories to 1,200 calories or working out 3 times a day to lose weight, if you're just going to go back to your habits 2 weeks later because you can't maintain that 1,000-calorie diet or deficit or whatever. So my biggest tip is to just find the little tweaks that are sustainable to you. It is way better for you to lose a small amount of weight and keep it off than for you to lose a large amount of weight and gain it right back.
Yeah, I think so. To summarize that is do the smallest changes that you can make for the rest of your life that you'll be able to maintain rather than just trying to like do a lot at once. And my answer or my opinion is add more fruit and vegetables. So I think if you start eating more fruits and vegetables into your diet, you're kind of almost automatically going to start losing weight because you're going to be more full from it. You're going to get more fiber, low calorie dense food. It's going to help you. And for you, if you do those small changes, and I'll add another one, get my cookbook. because it's going to have those low calories, lots of fruit and vegetables. If you eat low calorie foods, you're going to end up losing weight.